Marcus Reed thought he had it all figured out. $1 million business, a picture-perfect fiancée from high society, and a wedding that would seal his place among the elite. But when he locked eyes with the humble housekeeper organizing his mother's life, everything he believed about love, loyalty, and what truly mattered began to crumble. What Marcus didn't know was that his cold, calculating fiancée Victoria had already begun plotting to destroy the one woman who threatened her perfect arrangement, and she'd stop at nothing to keep her golden ticket to wealth and status. As family secrets surface and hearts collide, Marcus will be forced to choose between the life everyone expects him to live and the love that could either save him or destroy everything he's worked to build. But Victoria's final revenge will leave everyone questioning who the real victim is in this dangerous game of love and betrayal. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and tell me what city you're from, because this story of love versus duty is about to get messy. The silverware gleamed under the dining room chandelier. Marcus Reed loosened his tie as he walked through his mother's front door, the familiar scent of her cooking mixing with something else. Stress. He could feel it in the air like a storm coming. "Marcus, sweetheart, you're here." Lorraine Reed smoothed her navy dress and smiled, but her eyes held that look, the one that meant she had plans, big plans. "Hey, Mama." Marcus kissed her cheek, noting the extra place settings on the mahogany table. "What's all this?" His cousin Andre appeared from the kitchen, grinning. "Man, your mama's been cooking all day. Whatever's happening tonight, it's important." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. At 32, he'd built his property management company from nothing. He could read people, read situations. And right now, everything in this house was telling him to run. "Sit, sit." Lorraine guided him to his usual chair. "The Lanes will be here any minute." "The Lanes?" Marcus's voice came out sharper than he meant. Richard Lane was one of his biggest investors. Victoria Lane was his daughter, beautiful, smart, and completely wrong for him in every way that mattered. "Now, don't make that face." Lorraine patted his shoulder. "Victoria is a lovely girl, accomplished, from a good family." The doorbell rang before Marcus could respond. His mother practically floated to answer it, leaving him alone with Andre. "Bro, you look like you're about to throw up," Andre said quietly. "I think I might." Marcus stared at the fancy napkins, the good china his mother only used for special occasions. "She's setting me up, isn't she?" "Probably," Andre shrugged. "But hey, maybe Victoria's changed. Maybe she's—" "Marcus!" Victoria Lane swept into the room like she owned it. Her blonde hair was perfect. Her smile was perfect. Her dress probably cost more than most people made in a month. She hugged him before he could step back. Her perfume was too strong, too sweet. "I've missed you so much. We have so much to talk about." Behind her came Richard Lane, a man who treated conversations like business deals, and his wife, Elena, who looked at people like she was pricing them. "Marcus, good to see you." Richard's handshake was firm, calculated. "I trust your mother's told you why we're here." "Actually, no." Marcus looked around the table as everyone sat down. "She hasn't." Lorraine appeared with the main course, her face glowing with excitement. "Well, we wanted to surprise you. Richard and I have been talking, and we think it's time for you and Victoria to make it official," Elena finished, reaching for her wineglass. The room went quiet except for the tick of the grandfather clock. Marcus felt like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. Victoria took his hand under the table. Her fingers were cold, her grip possessive. "I know we've been taking things slow, but when you think about it, we make perfect sense together." "Do we?" The words slipped out before Marcus could stop them. "Of course," Richard said, cutting his steak with precision. "Your business needs stability. Victoria needs a husband with ambition. Our families have history together. It's smart." Smart. Not loving, not passionate. Smart. Marcus watched Victoria smile at his mother, complimenting the food she hadn't even tasted yet. He watched her parents nod approvingly at the silverware, the artwork, the size of the house. They were evaluating everything like they were buying it. Maybe they were. "We were thinking a spring wedding," Victoria continued, as if Marcus had already agreed. "Something elegant, not too big, but big enough to make the right impression." "The right impression on who?" Marcus asked. "Everyone who matters, dear." Elena smiled like she was explaining something to a child. Your clients, your investors, the community. Image is everything in business. Marcus felt Andre's eyes on him. His cousin was trying not to laugh, which somehow made everything worse. "So what do you say, son?" Richard raised his glass. "Ready to make this official?" The word son hit Marcus wrong. Richard Lane wasn't his father. His father had been a good man who worked with his hands and treated people fairly. His father would have hated this conversation. Marcus started, then stopped. Everyone was looking at him. His mother's face was so hopeful, it broke his heart. Victoria's smile was confident, like she'd never been told no in her life. "Yes," he heard himself say. "Sure." The table erupted in congratulations. Victoria kissed his cheek. His mother started crying happy tears. Richard ordered champagne from somewhere, but all Marcus could hear was his own heartbeat, loud and fast and wrong. After dinner, after toasts he didn't remember making, after promises he wasn't sure he wanted to keep, everyone finally left. The house felt too quiet now. Marcus stood alone in the dining room, staring at the empty chairs. On the table, forgotten beside a water glass, was a small black box. Victoria's engagement ring, the one she'd accidentally left behind so he could properly propose later. He picked it up, opened it. The diamond was huge, flawless, and as cold as Victoria's hands had been. Outside, a car door slammed, Andre's truck pulling away. His mother was probably in the kitchen, washing dishes and planning wedding details. And Marcus was standing here, holding a ring for a woman he didn't love, promised to a life he didn't want. The clock chimed 9 times. Each sound felt like a countdown to something he couldn't stop. Morning came too early. Marcus hadn't slept much, tossing around questions he couldn't answer. By 7, he was back at his mother's house, using his key to enter through the back door. Maybe if he talked to her alone, without Richard and Elena pressuring everyone, he could explain how he felt. The kitchen smelled like coffee and something burning. He followed the scent into the hallway and nearly crashed into someone carrying a laundry basket. "Oh," a soft voice, surprised but not panicked. "I'm sorry, I didn't see you." Marcus looked down at the woman who'd stopped just short of running into him. She was maybe 5'5" with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were the color of honey, warm and kind. One of his shirts had fallen from her basket, and they both reached for it at the same time. Their hands touched briefly as he picked up the shirt. Her skin was warm, real. "You must be Marcus," she said, straightening up. "I'm Hannah Cole. I work for your mother." Work for her? Marcus had never seen this woman before, and he visited his mother twice a week. "I'm the housekeeper. Well, house manager, really. I help with cleaning, organizing, errands, that kind of thing." Hannah's smile was natural, not practiced like Victoria's. "Your mother hired me about 3 weeks ago." "Right." Marcus felt stupid holding his own shirt. "Sorry, I didn't know." "No problem." Hannah shifted the basket to her hip. "I was just getting this load started. Your mother mentioned you might stop by early." From the kitchen came a smell of actual burning, not just strong coffee. "Is that?" Marcus sniffed the air. "Oh no, the toast!" Hannah rushed toward the kitchen, Marcus following. She rescued 4 pieces of bread that were more black than brown, waving a dish towel to clear the smoke. "Your mother got distracted by a phone call. Something about flowers for an engagement party?" Marcus winced. "Yeah, that would be mine." Hannah looked at him properly for the first time, taking in his rumpled shirt and tired eyes. "Congratulations," she said, but her voice was careful, like she wasn't sure if congratulations were actually in order. "Thanks." He watched her scrape the burnt parts off the toast, somehow making it look edible again. "How long have you been doing this? House managing, I mean." "About 2 years for different families. Before that I worked in a hotel, so I know how to keep things running smooth." She buttered the rescued toast with quick, practiced movements. "Your mother's sweet. She worries about you." "She worries about everything." Marcus leaned against the counter, surprised to find himself relaxing. "Yesterday was kind of intense." Hannah nodded but didn't push for details. Instead, she grabbed a grocery list from the refrigerator door and started checking items off. "Mrs. Reed wants to have people over again next week, so I need to pick up a few things. The good napkins need to be pressed. Oh, and that lamp in the living room is broken. The switch is loose. I called someone to fix it." Marcus watched her organize his mother's chaos with calm efficiency. She didn't fuss or complain. She just handled things. "You're good at this," he said. "I like taking care of people." Hannah glanced up from the list. "And I like your mother. She talks about you a lot, how proud she is, how hard you work." "Does she?" Marcus felt his chest tighten for a different reason now. "What else does she say?" "That you take on too much, that you put everyone else first." Hannah's eyes met his, and for a moment he felt like she could see straight through him. "That you need someone to take care of you for a change." Before Marcus could respond, Lorraine walked into the kitchen, her face bright with morning energy. "Marcus, I didn't hear you come in. Hannah, sweetheart, did you meet my son?" "Yes, ma'am, we introduced ourselves." Hannah handed Lorraine the rescued toast. "I saved these, but barely." "Oh, bless you. I got so excited talking to the florist, I completely forgot." Lorraine turned to Marcus. "We were discussing centerpieces for the engagement party. I was thinking roses, red ones for passion." Marcus nearly choked on the coffee Hannah had quietly poured him. "Engagement party? Well, of course, honey. We have to announce it properly. Victoria's mother is already planning everything." Lorraine sat down with her toast, gesturing for Marcus to join her. 2 weeks from Saturday. Nothing too big, just close family and friends." "And business associates," Marcus muttered. "Well, yes. Richard thinks it's important to celebrate with the people who matter to your career." Hannah had moved to the sink, washing dishes with her back to them. But Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, like she was trying not to listen to something that made her uncomfortable. "Mama," Marcus started, then stopped. How could he explain that the whole thing felt wrong when his mother looked so happy? "I know it's moving fast," Lorraine said softly, "but sometimes the best decisions are the ones that make sense on paper and in your heart." Marcus almost laughed. His heart had nothing to do with yesterday's conversation. "I should probably get going," he said, standing up. "I've got meetings all morning." "Of course, sweetheart, you work too hard." Lorraine kissed his cheek. "But think about how nice it'll be when you have Victoria to come home to, someone from your own social circle who understands your world." Marcus nodded and headed for the door, but something made him stop and look back. Hannah was still at the sink, carefully washing his mother's good china by hand instead of putting it in the dishwasher. She handled each piece like it mattered. "Thank you for the coffee, Hannah." She turned, surprised. "Oh, you're welcome. And for taking care of my mother." Their eyes met again, and Marcus felt that same jolt of recognition he'd experienced when they'd both reached for his fallen shirt, like he'd been waiting his whole life to meet someone who looked at him without wanting something in return. "Drive safe," Hannah said quietly. Marcus left through the back door, but the feeling of her warm eyes stayed with him all the way to the office. 3 days later, Marcus was back at his mother's house for family dinner. Just the three of them this time, him, Lorraine, and Andre. No investors, no pressure, no talk of engagements. At least, that was the plan. "So have you talked to Victoria since Tuesday?" Lorraine asked as she passed the meatloaf. "We texted a few times." Marcus had actually ignored most of Victoria's calls, claiming work emergencies. He needed space to think, but Victoria didn't seem to understand the concept of space. "She's excited about the engagement party. Her mother sent over some menu ideas, very sophisticated." Lorraine pulled out a folded paper covered in elegant handwriting. "Champagne cocktails, something called artisanal cheese displays," whatever that means. Andre snorted. "Fancy cheese, Aunt Lorraine. It's still just cheese." "This is important, Andre. First impressions matter." Lorraine smoothed the paper carefully. "Victoria wants everything to be perfect for Marcus." "What about what Marcus wants?" Andre asked, giving his cousin a pointed look. "I want—" Marcus started, then trailed off. What did he want? Not Victoria, that was certain, but beyond that, he felt lost. A soft knock on the kitchen door interrupted his thoughts. "That's probably Hannah," Lorraine said, getting up. "She said she might stop by to drop off the dry cleaning." Marcus straightened in his chair without meaning to. He hadn't seen Hannah since Tuesday morning, but he'd found himself thinking about her at odd moments, the way she'd moved around the kitchen like she belonged there, the careful way she'd listened to his problems without trying to fix them. "Come in, sweetheart," Lorraine called. Hannah appeared in the doorway carrying a stack of pressed shirts and looking apologetic. "I'm sorry to interrupt your dinner. I just wanted to get these back to you. You're not interrupting anything. Hannah, you remember my son Marcus, and this is his cousin Andre. Nice to meet you, Andre said, standing up with better manners than Marcus had managed. You too. Hannah smiled at Andre, then glanced at Marcus. Hi again. Hey! Marcus felt that warm jolt again, stronger this time. Hannah was wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked real in a way that made Victoria seem like a magazine cutout. Can I get you some coffee? Something to eat? Lorraine was already moving toward the coffee pot. Oh no, thank you. I don't want to intrude on family time. Hannah set the shirts on a side chair. I just wanted to make sure these got back before the weekend. Nonsense, you're not intruding. Lorraine poured a cup anyway. Marcus was just telling us about his engagement party. Marcus saw Hannah's posture change slightly, her smile becoming more polite and distant. That's wonderful, she said. I'm sure it'll be beautiful. Victoria has such sophisticated taste, Lorraine continued, apparently not noticing Hannah's discomfort. She knows exactly how these things should be done. I'm sure she does. Hannah accepted the coffee but didn't sit down. Well, I should let you all get back to dinner. Wait, Marcus said before he could stop himself. How's your week been? Hannah looked surprised by the question. Good, busy. Your mother keeps me on my toes. She's been wonderful, Lorraine said proudly. Fixed that lamp, organized my entire spice cabinet, and somehow got that awful stain out of my favorite tablecloth. It just needed the right approach, Hannah said modestly. Where'd you learn all that? Andre asked. You some kind of domestic goddess? Hannah laughed, a sound that made Marcus's chest tight with something he couldn't name. Hardly. I worked in a hotel for a few years. You learn to handle all kinds of situations. What kind of hotel? Marcus found himself genuinely curious about her life, her story. Nothing fancy. The kind where you learn to be resourceful. Hannah's smile was self-deprecating, but not bitter. Before that, I helped my grandmother take care of her house after my grandfather passed. She taught me that there's no problem you can't solve with patience and elbow grease. Sounds like she was a smart woman, Andre said. She was. She always said the best way to show love is through the little things, making someone's life a little easier when you can. Hannah glanced around the kitchen, which was notably cleaner and more organized than usual. I try to remember that. Marcus watched her talk, noting how her whole face lit up when she mentioned her grandmother. There was something genuine about Hannah that drew him in. She didn't perform or pretend, she just was. Speaking of little things, Lorraine said, Hannah's been helping me plan the seating for the engagement party. She has such a good eye for detail. You're planning my engagement party? Marcus asked, surprised. Hannah flushed slightly. Just helping with logistics. Your mother has so many ideas. I'm just helping keep them organized. She's being modest, Lorraine said. Hannah suggested we use the back garden instead of cramming everyone in the house, and she found those beautiful lanterns at that little shop downtown. Marcus felt something twist in his stomach. Hannah was helping plan his engagement to another woman. The irony would be funny if it didn't hurt so much. That sounds great, he managed. I should really go, Hannah said, setting down her barely touched coffee. My sister gets off work soon, and we usually have dinner together on Thursdays. Your sister? Andre asked. Katie. She's younger than me, works at Romano's Diner downtown. We share an apartment. Hannah's voice softened with affection. She keeps me sane. Bring her by sometime, Lorraine said warmly. I'd love to meet her. That's very sweet of you. Hannah gathered her purse and keys. Good night, everyone. Marcus, congratulations again on your engagement. She was gone before Marcus could respond, leaving behind only the faint scent of something clean and warm. Not perfume, maybe just soap and sunshine. I like her, Andre announced once the door closed. She's wonderful, Lorraine agreed. So helpful and kind. And she never acts like the work is beneath her, you know? Some of the girls I interviewed acted like cleaning toilets was going to kill them. Marcus nodded absently, still thinking about Hannah's laugh, the way she'd talked about making people's lives easier. She reminds me of your grandmother, actually, Lorraine continued. Remember how Nana always said the measure of a person was how they treated folks who couldn't do anything for them? Yeah, Marcus said quietly. I remember. He also remembered how Victoria had looked right through the waitress at dinner Tuesday night, how she'd snapped at the valet when he'd taken too long with her car. little things Hannah would never do. You okay, Kaz? Andre was studying him with knowing eyes. You've been quiet all week. Just tired. Marcus pushed his meatloaf around his plate. Work stuff. But it wasn't work keeping him up at night. It was the growing certainty that he was about to marry the wrong woman, and he had no idea how to stop it without destroying everything his mother had worked for. Saturday came with storm clouds and the kind of humidity that made everyone cranky. Marcus had planned to spend the morning at the office, catching up on paperwork, but a text from his mother changed everything. Emergency at the house. Can you come? Marcus drove through the increasingly dark morning, rain starting to splatter his windshield. His mother's emergencies could range from actual problems to spider sightings, so he tried not to panic. He found Lorraine in the living room, wringing her hands while water dripped through the ceiling into a bucket. Oh, thank goodness you're here. She grabbed his arm like he was a life preserver. It started about an hour ago. Something's wrong with the roof. Marcus looked up at the growing wet spot above them. Did you call someone? I tried, but it's Saturday, and with this storm coming, everyone's booked solid. Lorraine's voice rose with stress. And Victoria's parents are supposed to stop by this afternoon to discuss party details. Before Marcus could answer, the back door opened and Hannah appeared, shaking rain from her jacket. Sorry I'm late, she called. The bus got held up by flooding on Main Street. She took in the scene, the bucket, the dripping ceiling, Lorraine's panicked expression. Oh no, what happened? Roof leak, Marcus said, and apparently every roofer in the city is busy. Hannah set down her bag and looked up at the ceiling, her expression thoughtful rather than panicked. Can I borrow a flashlight? She asked, and maybe some towels? Hannah, sweetheart, this isn't really your job, Lorraine protested. You shouldn't have to. It's okay, Hannah said calmly. Let me just take a look. 10 minutes later, she was back from the attic, her hair slightly dusty, but her expression satisfied. Good news, she announced. It's not the roof. It's a loose pipe connection in the upstairs bathroom. The storm pressure probably loosened it completely. Can you fix it? Marcus asked, impressed despite himself. Maybe. I'd need to turn off the water to that bathroom and tighten the connection. It's not a permanent fix, but it should stop the leak until you can get a real plumber out here. Lorraine looked at Marcus helplessly. I don't even know where the water shutoff is. I do, Hannah said. I always check that stuff when I start working somewhere. You never know what might happen. She disappeared upstairs with Marcus's toolkit, leaving him alone with his mother in the living room. That girl is a treasure, Lorraine said, moving the bucket to catch a new drip. I don't know what I'd do without her. Marcus nodded, thinking about Hannah crawling around in the attic without being asked, solving problems that weren't technically her responsibility. When was the last time someone had just helped him like that, without wanting something in return? 20 minutes later, the dripping stopped. Hannah came back downstairs, wiping her hands on a towel. That should hold for now. You'll want to have a plumber check it properly, but the immediate crisis is over. Hannah, you're amazing. Lorraine hugged her impulsively. What do I owe you for this? Nothing. It's fine. Hannah looked genuinely confused by the question. I'm just glad I could help. But it's Saturday, and this isn't in your job description, and Mrs. Reed, Hannah said gently. It's okay, really. Marcus watched this exchange with growing wonder. Hannah had gotten dirty and wet fixing someone else's problem on her day off, and she genuinely didn't want anything extra for it. At least let me make you lunch, Lorraine insisted. It's the least I can do. Actually, Marcus said before he could think it through, I was going to grab something at Romano's Diner. Isn't that where your sister works? Maybe you could show me the way? Hannah looked surprised. You want to go to Romano's? Why not? I like diners. Marcus realized he was improvising wildly, but something about the morning, watching Hannah solve problems with quiet competence, seeing her refuse extra payment, noticing how she'd hugged his grateful mother without any awkwardness, made him want to know more about her world. Are you sure? It's not exactly, Hannah gestured at his expensive shirt and watch. Not exactly what? Your kind of place, probably. It's pretty basic. Marcus felt a flash of something like irritation. You think I'm too good for a diner? No, I just meant, Hannah flushed, clearly flustered. I don't know what I meant. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Marcus softened his voice. I'd really like to see where you and your sister hang out, if that's okay. Hannah studied his face for a moment, like she was trying to figure out his angle. Whatever she saw there must have convinced her he was sincere. "Okay," she said finally, "but you're driving. The bus takes forever in this weather." Romano's diner looked exactly like what it was, a neighborhood place where people came for good food and honest prices. The vinyl booths were patched but clean, the coffee was strong, and the waitress called everyone Hon. Marcus followed Hannah to a corner booth, noting how she waved at the cook through the kitchen window and asked the hostess about her sick daughter. This was clearly Hannah's place in a way the fancy restaurants Victoria favored would never be his. "Katie," Hannah called to a young woman carrying a coffee pot. "Come meet someone." Katie Cole looked like a younger version of Hannah, with the same warm eyes but a more guarded expression. She approached their table with the wariness of someone who'd learned not to trust too easily. "Katie, this is Marcus Reed. His mother is Mrs. Reed, the one I work for." "The one with the engagement party," Katie said, her tone carefully neutral as she shook Marcus's hand. "That's me," Marcus said, wondering why those words felt harder to say every time. Katie poured coffee without being asked, her movements efficient and practiced. "Hannah talks about your mom a lot, says she's real nice." "She is, and your sister just saved our ceiling." "Hannah's good at that kind of thing, always fixing stuff." Katie's expression warmed slightly. "You eating or just coffee?" "What's good here?" Marcus asked. "Everything," Hannah said. "But the meatloaf is amazing, and the apple pie is better than anything you'll get in those fancy places downtown." Marcus ordered the meatloaf, partly because Hannah recommended it, and partly because he couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten anything that wasn't chosen to impress someone. "So," Katie said, refilling his coffee cup, "you nervous about getting married?" "Katie!" Hannah shot her sister a warning look. "What? It's a fair question. Getting engaged is a big deal." Marcus found himself studying Katie's young face, noting the same directness Hannah had, but without the careful politeness. "It is a big deal," he said carefully. "Victoria Lane, right? I've seen her picture in the society pages." Katie's tone was still neutral, but her eyes were sharp. "She's real pretty." "Yes, she is." "Pretty's nice," Katie continued, wiping down their table with unnecessary thoroughness. "But Hannah always says pretty on the outside doesn't mean much if it's not matched with pretty on the inside." "Katie," Hannah said again, more firmly this time, "I'm just making conversation." Katie grinned at her sister's discomfort. "So what do you think, Mr. Reed? You think pretty on the outside is enough?" Marcus felt like he was being tested, but he wasn't sure what the right answer was. Or maybe he was sure, and that was the problem. "I think," he said slowly, "that the most beautiful thing about a person is usually the thing you can't see in a photograph." Something shifted in Katie's expression. "That's a good answer." She moved on to other tables, leaving Marcus alone with Hannah and the growing realization that he was in trouble. Not the kind of trouble Victoria represented, all surface pressure and social expectations. This was deeper, scarier trouble. "I'm sorry about Katie," Hannah said quietly. "She's protective, and she doesn't really trust men with money." "Bad experience?" Hannah's coffee cup stilled halfway to her lips. "Something like that." "Your bad experience, or hers?" "Mine." Hannah set down the cup without drinking. "But I don't really want to talk about it." "Okay." Marcus respected the boundary, but found himself wanting to know what had put that careful distance in Hannah's eyes. "Can I ask you something else instead?" "Sure." "Why do you work for my mother? I mean, you're clearly smart enough to do anything. Why housekeeping?" Hannah was quiet for a long moment, watching rain streak down the diner's windows. "Because it's honest work," she said finally, "and because I'm good at taking care of people. After my grandmother died, I kind of lost my way for a while. Made some bad choices, trusted the wrong person." She glanced at him quickly, then away. "Working for people like your mother reminds me that there are still good people in the world. People who treat you fairly, who say thank you, who actually care if you're okay." Marcus felt something heavy settle in his chest. "What happened? With the wrong person, I mean." Hannah shook her head. "Long story. And like I said, I don't really want to talk about it." But Marcus was beginning to understand. Someone had hurt her. Someone with money, probably, given Katie's comment about not trusting rich men. Someone who'd made her careful and guarded in a way that broke his heart. For what it's worth, he said. My mother thinks the world of you. She's been good to me. Really good. Hannah's smile was genuine now. It's nice to work for someone who doesn't make you feel small, you know? Marcus nodded, thinking about how Victoria had treated that waitress, how Richard Lane talked to his assistant, how his whole social circle seemed to view service workers as invisible. I know, he said. And for the first time in his life, he really did. Katie brought their food and they ate in comfortable quiet while the storm raged outside. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so relaxed, so present in the moment. Hannah told him about her sister's plans to save money for college, about the regular customers who'd become like family, about the simple pleasure of work that made a difference in people's daily lives. When the check came, Marcus reached for it, but Hannah grabbed it first. My treat, she said firmly. You drove, and you're probably doing me a favor by keeping me from having to take 3 buses home in this weather. I can afford lunch, Hannah. I know you can. But I asked you to show me your world that first day, and you did. Today, you asked to see mine. She handed Katie exact change plus a generous tip. In my world, friends take care of each other. Friends, the word hit Marcus like a physical thing. When was the last time someone had called him friend without wanting something from him? As they drove back to his mother's house through the clearing storm, Marcus found himself stealing glances at Hannah. She was humming along with the radio, completely unself-conscious, her hair still slightly messed from her morning in the attic. She was beautiful, not in the calculated high-maintenance way Victoria was beautiful, but in a way that made Marcus want to protect her and be protected by her at the same time, which was exactly the kind of thinking that could ruin everything. Thanks for lunch, he said as he pulled into his mother's driveway, and for fixing the ceiling, and for, I don't know, showing me Romano's. Thanks for wanting to see it. Hannah unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't immediately get out. Can I ask you something now? Sure. Are you happy? About the engagement, I mean. The question caught him completely off guard, not because it was inappropriate, though it probably was, but because it was the first time anyone had asked. Marcus started, then stopped. How could he explain that happiness hadn't been part of the equation? That he'd said yes to Victoria because it made sense, because it solved problems, because everyone expected it? You don't have to answer, Hannah said quietly. It's just, you don't look like someone who's excited about getting married. Marcus turned to study her profile. What do I look like? Tired. Like you're carrying something heavy and you can't put it down. The observation was so accurate it took his breath away. Maybe I am. Marcus, don't. He cut her off gently. Don't say whatever you're about to say, because I'm pretty sure it's something I need to hear, and I'm not ready to hear it yet. Hannah nodded slowly. Okay, but when you are ready, I'm a pretty good listener. She got out of the car and walked to her own vehicle, leaving Marcus sitting in his driveway with the certainty that everything in his life was about to change. He just didn't know if he was brave enough to let it happen. The engagement party was a week away, and Marcus was drowning in details he didn't care about. Victoria called every day with updates on flowers, music, guest lists, and menu changes. His mother left messages about speeches and seating arrangements. Richard Lane sent emails about networking opportunities and making the right impression. Everyone was excited except Marcus. He'd been avoiding his mother's house, afraid of running into Hannah again. Their conversation at Romano's had left him shaken in a way he couldn't explain. She'd seen through him so easily, asked the one question nobody else had bothered to ask. Are you happy? The answer was no. He wasn't happy, hadn't been happy in so long he'd almost forgotten what it felt like. But Thursday morning brought another emergency text from his mother, and Marcus found himself back in her kitchen watching Hannah move around the space with quiet efficiency. The caterers want to do a walkthrough, Lorraine was explaining to Hannah, and the florist needs to see the garden layout, and Victoria wants to approve everything personally. Of course she does, Marcus muttered under his breath. Hannah glanced at him but didn't comment. When is all this happening? Hannah asked, making notes on her ever-present clipboard. This afternoon. Victoria insisted on being here for all of it. Lorraine's voice held a note of stress. She has very specific ideas about how things should look. Marcus bet she did. Victoria had opinions about everything, from the thread count of his sheets to the brand of coffee he drank. She was reshaping his life one small demand at a time. "I'll make sure everything's ready," Hannah said calmly. "The garden's in good shape, and I can have coffee and light refreshments available when they arrive." "What would I do without you?" Lorraine squeezed Hannah's arm gratefully. Marcus found himself asking the same question. What would any of them do without Hannah? She'd become the calm center of his mother's world, the person who made everything work smoothly. And in a week, when the engagement was official, when Victoria started spending more time at the house, Hannah would have to deal with her too. The thought made his stomach clench. "I should probably head out," he said, standing abruptly. "Let you all prepare for the invasion." "Marcus," his mother's voice was sharp with disapproval. "Victoria is going to be your wife. You could try to sound a little more enthusiastic." "Right. Sorry." Marcus kissed his mother's cheek, carefully not looking at Hannah. "I'm sure everything will be perfect." He was halfway to his car when he heard footsteps behind him. "Marcus, wait." He turned to find Hannah hurrying after him, her expression concerned. "Are you okay?" she asked when she caught up. "You seem what? Like you're about to run away." Marcus laughed, but it came out bitter. "Maybe I am." Hannah looked around, making sure they were alone, then stepped closer. "You can't run away from your own engagement party." "Why not? People do it all the time." "Do they?" Hannah's eyes were searching his face. "Or do they just think about it and then go through with it anyway because it's easier than disappointing everyone?" The observation hit too close to home. "You don't know anything about my situation." "You're right. I don't." Hannah's voice stayed gentle despite his sharp tone. "But I know what it looks like when someone's trapped, and I know what it's like to go along with something because everyone else thinks it's a good idea." Marcus felt his anger deflate. "I'm not trapped." "Okay. I'm not. I could call this whole thing off if I wanted to. Then why don't you?" The simple question hung between them like a challenge. Marcus opened his mouth to give her all the logical reasons, his mother's hopes, the business implications, the social expectations, the financial benefits. Instead, he heard himself say, "Because I don't know what I want instead." Hannah's expression softened. "That's okay. You don't have to know everything right now." "Everyone expects me to know. I'm 32 years old. I run a successful business. I'm supposed to have it all figured out." "Says who?" Marcus stared at her. In the morning light, with her hair caught by the breeze and her eyes full of understanding, she looked like everything he hadn't known he was searching for. "I should go," he said, but he didn't move. "Probably," Hannah agreed, but she didn't step away either. They stood there in his mother's driveway, caught in a moment that felt both completely innocent and absolutely dangerous. Marcus could hear birds singing, smell the honeysuckle that grew along the fence, feel the warmth of the sun on his shoulders. "Hannah, I know," she said softly. "I know you're engaged. I know this is complicated. I know I should mind my own business. But I also know that life is short, and pretending to be happy when you're not is a waste of the time you have." A car turned into the driveway behind them, Victoria's white BMW, arriving early for the planning session. Marcus and Hannah stepped apart quickly, but not before Marcus caught the flash of calculation in Victoria's eyes as she parked. "Darling," Victoria climbed out of her car, her smile bright and possessive. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Emergency meeting with my mother," Marcus said, falling back into the role of dutiful fiancé. "Just heading out now." "Perfect timing, then." Victoria kissed his cheek, marking territory, then turned to Hannah with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And you must be the housekeeper Mother Reed mentioned." "I'm Hannah," Hannah said, extending her hand politely. Victoria shook it briefly, like she was touching something distasteful. "How nice. I'm Victoria Lane, Marcus's fiancée." "Congratulations," Hannah said, her voice carefully neutral. "I should get back inside. The caterers will be here soon." She walked away without looking back, leaving Marcus alone with Victoria and the uncomfortable feeling that something important had just shifted. "She seems—" Victoria paused, searching for the right word. "Familiar." "Familiar?" "With you. The way she was standing, talking to you." Victoria's voice was light, but Marcus caught the edge underneath. "Almost like she thinks she knows you. She works for my mother. Of course we've talked." Victoria linked her arm through his, her grip just a little too tight. Well, we should be careful about that. People might get the wrong idea. What kind of wrong idea? Victoria's laugh was like glass breaking. Oh, you know how people talk, rich man, pretty housekeeper, romantic misunderstandings. It's all very cliché. Marcus felt his temper flare. Hannah isn't a cliché. She's a person. Of course she is, darling. I didn't mean anything by it. Victoria's tone was soothing now, the way you'd talk to a child having a tantrum. I just think we should be mindful of appearances, especially now, with the engagement being so public. Right, Marcus said. Appearances. Victoria kissed him again, longer this time, and Marcus forced himself not to pull away. This was his life now. This was what he'd chosen. But as he drove away, leaving Victoria to plan their future, all he could think about was the way Hannah had looked at him and asked if he was happy. The answer was still no. But for the first time in months, Marcus was beginning to think that might be important. The engagement party was 3 days away, and Marcus felt like he was drowning in other people's expectations. His office phone hadn't stopped ringing. Vendors, family members, business associates, all wanting to confirm details for an event he dreaded attending. Mr. Reed? His assistant knocked on his office door. Victoria Lane is here to see you. Marcus looked up from the contracts he'd been pretending to read. Send her in. Victoria swept into his office like she owned it, carrying shopping bags and wearing the kind of smile that meant she'd been spending his money. Darling, I have the most wonderful news. She dropped the bags and perched on the edge of his desk. I found the perfect dress for Saturday, and I picked up your tuxedo from the tailor. Great, Marcus tried to summon enthusiasm. I'm sure it's beautiful. It is, but that's not the best part. Victoria's eyes sparkled with excitement. Daddy, talk to some people at the country club, and we might be able to have our wedding there. Can you imagine? The gardens are gorgeous, and it would be such a statement. Marcus felt the walls of his office closing in. Our wedding? Well, yes. We need to start planning. Spring is only a few months away, and the best venues book up fast. Victoria pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. Look at these reception halls. Aren't they divine? The images blurred together. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, flowers arranged with military precision. Everything perfect, cold, and expensive. Victoria, Marcus said carefully, don't you think we should take things slower? We just got engaged. Slower? Victoria laughed like he'd made a joke. Darling, we've known each other for years, and we're not getting any younger. Besides, everyone expects us to set a date soon. There it was again. What everyone expected. What made sense. What looked right from the outside. What do you expect? Marcus asked. Victoria's smile flickered. What do you mean? I mean, what do you want from this marriage, from me? I want what any woman wants. Security, partnership, a beautiful life together. Victoria's tone became slightly patronizing. You're being very philosophical today, Marcus. Is work stressing you out? Marcus looked at this woman who was supposed to be his future wife and realized they'd never had a real conversation. Not once. Every interaction was about appearances, plans, social expectations. He didn't know what made her laugh, what she feared, what she dreamed about when she couldn't sleep. He wasn't sure she knew those things about herself. Maybe we should have dinner sometime, he said. Just the two of us. Talk about what we actually want. We are having dinner, Saturday night after the party, with both sets of parents to discuss wedding plans. Victoria stood up, smoothing her skirt. Really, Marcus, you're acting very strange lately. Are you having second thoughts? The question was asked lightly, but Marcus caught the steel underneath. Victoria wasn't really asking if he was having doubts. She was warning him not to. No, he lied. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Of course we are. We want the same things: success, respect, a life that matters. Victoria kissed his forehead like he was a child who needed reassurance. I have to run. Lunch with Mother to finalize the menu. Try not to overthink everything, darling. After she left, Marcus sat in his office staring out the window at the city below. People hurried along sidewalks, living their lives, making choices. How many of them were truly happy? How many were just going through the motions like he was? His phone buzzed with a text from Andre. Want to grab lunch? You look like you need to get out of there. Marcus smiled for the first time all morning. Andre always could read him like a book. They met at a small sandwich shop near Marcus's office, the kind of place where you ordered at a counter and ate at wobbly tables, not Victoria's scene at all. "So," Andre said, unwrapping his sub, "how's married life treating you?" "Oh wait, that's right, you're not married yet. You just look like a man whose soul is slowly dying." "That bad, huh?" "Worse. You look like you're planning your own funeral instead of your engagement party." Andre took a bite and studied his cousin's face. "What's going on, man? Really?" Marcus stared at his untouched sandwich. How could he explain the growing certainty that he was making the biggest mistake of his life? How could he admit that every conversation with Victoria made him feel more alone? "I think I might be in love with someone else," he heard himself say. Andre nearly choked on his food. "What? Who?" "Hannah, the woman who works for my mother." "The housekeeper?" Andre's eyebrows shot up. "Marcus, are you crazy?" "Probably." Andre set down his sandwich and leaned forward. "Tell me everything." So Marcus did. He told Andre about the morning they'd met, about Hannah fixing the roof without being asked, about lunch at Romano's and the way she'd made him feel like himself for the first time in years. He told him about Hannah's quiet kindness, her honesty, the way she saw through his carefully constructed image to the man underneath. "She asked if I was happy," Marcus finished, "and I realized nobody else has ever asked me that." Andre was quiet for a long moment. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That I'm not. And what are you going to do about it?" Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. "I don't know. The engagement party is in 3 days. My mother spent weeks planning it. Victoria's parents have invested in my company. There are expectations, obligations." "Screw the obligations," Andre said firmly. "What do you want?" "I want to cancel the party. I want to tell Victoria this isn't working. I want to see if Hannah might feel the same way about me." Marcus's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "And I want to stop being such a coward about it." "Then do it. It's not that simple." "Isn't it?" Andre leaned back in his chair. "Look, I get that there are complications, money, business, family drama, but at the end of the day, you're talking about the rest of your life. You want to spend the next 50 years pretending to be happy with Victoria?" The thought made Marcus feel physically sick. "No." "Then you know what you have to do." Marcus nodded, but his stomach was churning with anxiety. What if Hannah doesn't feel the same way? What if I'm reading everything wrong? "Then you'll deal with that." "But Marcus, I've seen you with Victoria, and I've seen you when you talk about Hannah. Trust me, there's no comparison." "What do you mean?" Andre grinned. "When you talk about Victoria, you sound like you're describing a business merger. When you talk about Hannah, you light up like Christmas morning. It's not subtle, cause." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Is it that obvious?" "To me?" "Yeah, but I've known you since we were kids." Andre's expression grew serious. "The question is, are you brave enough to fight for what you want?" Marcus thought about Hannah's smile, the way she'd looked at him in the driveway, the quiet strength she carried like armor. He thought about spending his life wondering, what if? "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think I am." That evening, Marcus drove to his mother's house with a plan. He was going to tell her the truth about his feelings for Victoria, about his growing certainty that the engagement was a mistake. It would hurt her, disappoint her, maybe even anger her. But Andre was right. This was his life. He found Lorraine in the kitchen with Hannah, going over last-minute party preparations. They looked up as he entered, both smiling warmly. "Perfect timing," Lorraine said. "Hannah was just showing me the seating chart for Saturday. She's arranged everything beautifully." Marcus looked at the careful diagrams Hannah had drawn, noting how she'd placed difficult relatives far from each other and put his most anxious business associates near friendly family members. She'd thought of everything. "It looks great," he said, catching Hannah's eye. "You've really thought this through." "I wanted everything to be perfect for you," Hannah said simply. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Here was this woman, planning his engagement to another woman, wanting him to be happy even though it had to hurt her. The selflessness of it was almost unbearable. "Mama," he said, his voice rougher than usual, "can I talk to you? Alone?" Something in his tone must have warned her, because Lorraine's smile faded. "Of course, sweetheart. Hannah, would you mind—" "I'll be in the garden," Hannah said quickly, gathering her papers. Just call if you need anything." After she left, Lorraine studied Marcus's face with the intuition that came from years of motherhood. "What's wrong?" she asked. Marcus sat down at the kitchen table, trying to find the right words. "Mama, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." "Are you sick? In trouble? What is it?" "I don't love Victoria." The words hung in the air like smoke. Lorraine sat down heavily across from him, her face going pale. "What do you mean you don't love her? You're engaged to her." "I know, and that was a mistake." Marcus reached across the table to take his mother's hand. "I should have said something sooner, but everyone seemed so excited, so sure it was right." "It is right," Lorraine said firmly. "Marcus, you're just nervous. All men get cold feet before—" "This isn't cold feet, Mama. This is me realizing I can't spend my life with someone I don't love, who doesn't love me." "Of course she loves you." "No, she doesn't. She loves what I represent, success, security, status, but she doesn't know me, the real me." Marcus's voice cracked slightly. "And I don't know her either, not really." Lorraine was quiet for a long moment, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "What about the party? All the guests, the arrangements? I'll pay for everything. I'll apologize to everyone. I'll handle Richard and the business complications." Marcus squeezed her hand. "But I can't marry her, Mama. I can't." "This is about that girl, isn't it?" Lorraine's voice was barely above a whisper. Marcus felt his heart stop. "What girl?" "Hannah. I've seen the way you look at her, the way you both act when you're in the same room." Lorraine pulled her hand away. "Marcus, she works for me. She's not from our world." "Our world?" Marcus felt his temper flare. "What does that mean?" "You know what it means. She doesn't have education, money, connections. She cleans houses for a living." "She takes care of people," Marcus corrected sharply. "She's kind, intelligent, honest. She sees me, really sees me, not just what I can do for her." "Marcus, you're not thinking clearly. You're attracted to her because she's different, because she seems simple and uncomplicated. But marriage isn't about attraction. It's about building a life together, about what? Money? Status?" Marcus stood up, pacing to the window where he could see Hannah in the garden, carefully arranging chairs for a party celebrating his engagement to someone else. "Is that what you and Daddy had? A business arrangement?" Lorraine's face crumpled. "Your father and I loved each other deeply, but we also built something together, security, respect, a legacy for our children." "Then you understand," Marcus said gently. "You understand why I can't settle for less than that." "But Hannah can't give you those things. She can't help your business grow, can't move in the right social circles, can't—" "She can make me happy," Marcus interrupted. "For the first time in years, someone makes me feel like I'm enough just as I am." Lorraine was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "What about everything your father and I worked for? What about the business, our reputation, our place in this community?" Marcus knelt beside his mother's chair, taking her hands in both of his. "Daddy would want me to be happy. You know he would. He'd hate seeing me trapped in a loveless marriage. But the money, Marcus, Richard Lane's investment, I'll figure it out. Maybe the business will be smaller. Maybe we'll have to work harder, but we'll survive. We always have." Lorraine looked at him through her tears, and Marcus could see the exact moment she realized he was serious, that this wasn't a phase or a moment of doubt. "You really love her," she said. "I really love her." "And you think she loves you?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted, "but I'd like the chance to find out." They sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 32 years of mother-son relationship shifting between them. What do you want me to do?" Lorraine finally asked. "Help me figure out how to tell Victoria without destroying everything. Help me find a way to make this right." Lorraine wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "This is going to hurt a lot of people, Marcus." "I know. And there might not be a way back from it." "I know that too." She nodded slowly. "Then we'd better figure out how to do it with as much grace as possible." Marcus felt relief flood through him like warm water. "Thank you, Mama." "Don't thank me yet," Lorraine said with a shaky laugh. "Victoria's going to be furious, Richard's going to pull his investment, and half our friends are going to think you've lost your mind." "Probably. And that poor girl in the garden is going to be caught in the middle of all this drama." Marcus looked out at Hannah again. She was adjusting a string of lights, completely absorbed in making everything perfect for them. "I have to tell her how I feel," he said. Not until after you deal with Victoria, Lorraine said firmly. That girl doesn't deserve to be anyone's rebound or consolation prize. If you're going to pursue her, you do it cleanly. Marcus nodded. His mother was right. Hannah deserved better than to be caught up in the messy end of his engagement. So what do we do about Saturday? He asked. Lorraine sighed deeply. I suppose we cancel the party. Can we do that? This late? We'll have to. The alternative is having you break up with Victoria in front of 50 people, and nobody wants that. Marcus felt another wave of relief. You'll help me with the calls? I'll help you with everything, Lorraine said, standing up and smoothing her skirt. But first, we need to tell Hannah what's happening. She's worked so hard on this party. They walked out to the garden together, where Hannah was stringing the last of the lights between two oak trees. In the growing dusk, the setup looked magical, intimate and warm, and completely different from the formal elegance Victoria would have preferred. Hannah? Lorraine called softly. Hannah turned, immediately noticing their serious expressions. Is everything okay? Marcus looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. We need to cancel the party, Marcus said. Hannah's face went carefully blank. Cancel it? But it's in 3 days. Everything's ready. I know, and I'm sorry. I know how much work you put into this. Marcus stepped closer, wanting to comfort her, but not sure if he should. I'll pay you for all your time, of course, and any cancellation fees. I don't care about the money, Hannah said quietly. What happened? Are you sick? Did something happen with the business? The genuine concern in her voice nearly broke Marcus's resolve to wait until after he dealt with Victoria. Hannah cared about him, really cared, and he was standing here making her worry. The engagement is off, he said simply. Hannah's eyes widened. Off? As in I realized I can't marry someone I don't love. The silence that followed was deafening. Hannah looked between Marcus and Lorraine, clearly trying to process what she was hearing. I'm sorry, she finally said. I know everyone was excited about this. Everyone except me, Marcus said. Something shifted in Hannah's expression, a flicker of hope quickly hidden. What are you going to do? Call everyone tonight. Apologize. Try to clean up the mess I've made. Hannah nodded slowly. And Victoria? Have you told her yet? That's next. That's not going to be an easy conversation. No, Marcus agreed. It's not. Hannah started gathering up her papers and planning materials. I should probably get out of your way then. Let you handle family business. Hannah, Lorraine said softly. You are family business. You're part of this family now. Hannah looked surprised, touched. Thank you. That means a lot. As she packed up her things, Marcus found himself memorizing everything about this moment. The way the evening light caught in her hair, the careful kindness in her movements, the quiet strength that drew him like gravity. Soon he'd be free to tell her how he felt. Soon he'd know if she felt the same way. But first, he had to untangle himself from the life everyone else had planned for him. The conversation with Victoria went about as well as Marcus had expected, which was to say it was a complete disaster. You want to call off the engagement? Victoria's voice rose to a pitch that made Marcus's ears ring. 3 days before our party? They were in Victoria's perfectly decorated apartment, surrounded by engagement gifts and wedding magazines. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. I'm sorry, Victoria. I know the timing is terrible. Terrible? Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Marcus, do you have any idea what this will do to me, to my reputation, to my family? I know it's not ideal. Not ideal? Victoria stood up from her white leather couch and began pacing. I've already told everyone we know. My mother has been planning our wedding for months. Daddy has business arrangements with your company. I'll work something out with your father. The business stuff doesn't have to affect... Oh, it absolutely will affect things, Victoria snapped. You think Daddy's going to want to work with the man who humiliated his daughter? Marcus felt a stab of guilt, but it was quickly overwhelmed by relief. The business relationship with Richard Lane had always felt like a chain around his neck anyway. I'm sorry about your reputation, he said, but I can't marry you, Victoria. It wouldn't be fair to either of us. Victoria stopped pacing and stared at him. Fair? Since when is marriage about fairness? It's about partnership, about building something bigger than either of us could build alone. But what about love? Love? Victoria's expression was genuinely confused. Marcus, we're adults. Love is for teenagers and romance novels. What we have is better. We have compatibility, shared goals, mutual respect. Marcus realized with stunning clarity that they were speaking completely different languages. Victoria truly believed that what they had was enough, that love was an optional extra in a successful marriage. "I don't feel that way," he said gently. "Then what do you feel?" Victoria's voice became dangerous. "Because if you think you're going to find some great passion with that little housekeeper, you're deluding yourself." The words hit Marcus like a slap. "What did you say?" "Oh, please. You think I haven't noticed? The way you look at her, talk to her, defend her?" Victoria's smile was cruel now. "She's pretty enough, I suppose, in a common sort of way. But Marcus, really? The help?" Marcus felt his temper explode. "Her name is Hannah, and she's worth 10 of you." "Is she? And what exactly can she offer you? A life of financial struggle, embarrassment in social situations, children with no advantages? She can offer me honesty, kindness, the chance to be myself instead of what everyone else wants me to be." Victoria stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "You're throwing away everything we could have together for a fantasy." "Maybe. But at least it would be my fantasy." Victoria was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was ice cold. "You'll regret this, Marcus. When the novelty wears off, when reality sets in, you'll remember what you gave up. And by then, it will be too late." "Maybe," Marcus said again, "but I'd rather regret taking a chance than regret never trying." He left the ring on her coffee table and walked out, feeling lighter with every step. Behind him, he could hear Victoria on the phone, probably calling her mother to begin damage control. But that was her problem now. Marcus had his own life to figure out. Canceling the engagement party turned out to be easier than Marcus had expected. Most people were shocked, but understanding when he explained that he and Victoria had realized they weren't compatible. A few were clearly disappointed. Richard Lane hung up on him, but Andre was right when he said real friends would support his decision. The hard part was waiting. 3 days passed while Marcus dealt with logistics, returned gifts, and fielded concerned calls from relatives. 3 days of knowing he was free but not being able to do anything about it. Finally, on what would have been the night of his engagement party, Marcus found himself standing on Hannah's doorstep with a bouquet of flowers that looked ridiculous in his shaking hands. The apartment building was modest but well maintained, with cheerful flower boxes under the windows and a neat front garden. Nothing like Victoria's sterile luxury condo, but somehow more welcoming. Marcus climbed the stairs to the second floor and knocked on apartment 2B. Hannah answered the door wearing jeans and a soft green sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked beautiful and real and completely surprised to see him. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "I brought you flowers," he said stupidly, holding out the bouquet. Hannah accepted them automatically, her eyes confused. "Thank you. They're beautiful." "But why?" "Because I wanted to talk to you. Away from my mother's house, away from all the family drama." Marcus gestured vaguely. "Can I come in?" Hannah hesitated, then stepped aside. "Of course, but Marcus, if this is about feeling guilty about the party—" "It's not." Hannah's apartment was small but cozy, with mismatched furniture that somehow worked together and books everywhere. Katie was curled up on the couch watching TV, but she looked up when they entered. "Well, well," Katie said with a grin, "if it isn't the runaway groom." "Katie," Hannah warned. "What? I think it's romantic. Guy realizes he's marrying the wrong woman, calls off the wedding, shows up at his true love's door with flowers." Katie stood up and grabbed her jacket from a chair. "Very movie of the week." "Where are you going?" Hannah asked. "Out. I suddenly remembered I need to do something, somewhere else." Katie winked at Marcus. "Nice flowers, by the way. Much better than the fancy arrangements rich people usually send." She left them alone in the suddenly too quiet apartment. "Katie's not subtle," Hannah said, putting the flowers in a glass of water. "I like her. She says what she thinks." That's one way to put it. Hannah turned to face him, and Marcus could see the careful walls going up in her expression. "So what did you want to talk about?" "About us." "Us?" Hannah's voice was carefully neutral. "Marcus, there is no us. You just broke up with your fiancée 3 days ago. I broke up with her because I realized I was in love with someone else. The words hung in the air between them. Hannah went very still, her eyes wide. Marcus, I know it's fast, I know it's complicated. I know you probably think I'm on the rebound or having some kind of breakdown. Marcus stepped closer, his heart hammering. But I also know that every conversation we've had has meant more to me than all the time I spent with Victoria. I know that you see me in a way nobody else does. And I know that when I imagine my future, you're in it. Hannah sank onto the couch, the flowers forgotten. You can't say things like that. Why not? Because it's inconvenient? Because people will talk. Marcus sat beside her, careful not to crowd her. Hannah, I spent years living my life according to what other people wanted. I can't do it anymore. It's not about other people, Hannah said quietly. It's about me, about things you don't know. Then tell me. Hannah was quiet for so long that Marcus thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I was engaged before, to a man named David. He was older, successful, charming. Everything seemed perfect. Hannah's hands twisted in her lap. Until I found out he was only with me to make his ex-girlfriend jealous. The whole relationship was a game to him. Marcus felt rage bloom in his chest. Hannah, let me finish. Her voice was stronger now. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. He said I should be grateful, that dating him had given me experiences I never could have had otherwise, made me more sophisticated. What a bastard. The worst part wasn't even the lies. It was realizing how naive I'd been, how I'd convinced myself that someone like him could actually care about someone like me. Hannah finally looked at Marcus, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I promised myself I'd never be that foolish again. Marcus understood now. The careful walls, the reluctance to trust, the way she'd warned him about getting involved with rich men. I'm not David, he said gently. I know you're not. But you're also not. You're not someone who belongs in my world, Marcus. Your mother was right about that. My mother said that? Hannah nodded. She told me you needed someone from your own social circle, someone who could help your career move in the right circles. And what do you think? I think, Hannah took a shaky breath, I think I could fall in love with you so easily it scares me. But I also think that 6 months from now, when the excitement wears off, you'll realize what you gave up for me. And I can't go through that again. Marcus reached for her hands, relieved when she didn't pull away. Hannah, look at me. She raised her eyes to his, and Marcus saw all her hope and fear written there. I didn't give up anything for you. I gave up a life that was slowly killing me. His voice was steady, certain. Every day with Victoria felt like pretending to be someone else, but every moment with you feels like coming home. Marcus, I know you're scared. I know you have every reason not to trust me, but I'm asking you to take a chance on us. Marcus brought her hands to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. I'm asking you to let me prove that this is real. Hannah stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus could practically see her internal battle, hope warring with fear, desire fighting with self-protection. If we do this, she said finally, we go slow. We get to know each other properly, without all the family drama and social pressure. However slow you want. And if it doesn't work out, we end it cleanly. No drama, no making your mother choose sides. Okay? And you have to promise me something else. Hannah's voice grew fierce. Promise me you'll never pretend this is something it's not to spare my feelings. If you change your mind, if you miss your old life, you tell me honestly. Don't string me along out of guilt or pity. I promise, Marcus said solemnly. But Hannah? Yeah? You have to promise me the same thing. If this gets too hard, if the pressure from my world becomes too much, you tell me. Don't just disappear to protect me from having to choose. Hannah nodded slowly. I promise. They sat there holding hands in her small living room, and Marcus felt something settle into place in his chest. This wasn't the dramatic romantic gesture of movies. It was better. It was two people choosing to be brave together. So, he said, unable to keep the smile out of his voice, want to have dinner with me tomorrow night? Somewhere that's not Romano's Diner or a 5-star restaurant. Just us, figuring out who we are together. Hannah's smile was like sunrise. I'd like that very much. As Marcus drove home that night, he thought about the conversation with Victoria, about her prediction that he'd regret this choice. Maybe he would. Maybe this was the biggest mistake of his life. But for the first time in years, Marcus was excited to find out. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus had knocked on Hannah's door with flowers and a heart full of hope. 3 weeks of quiet dinners, long walks, and conversations that lasted until midnight. 3 weeks of discovering that falling in love with Hannah was even better than he'd imagined. Marcus picked her up after her shift at the motel where she'd taken a second job to help with expenses. He hated that she had to work there, cleaning rooms for people who barely saw her as human, but Hannah insisted on paying her own way until they figured out where their relationship was going. "How was your day?" he asked as she climbed into his car, looking tired but smiling. "Long, but better now." Hannah leaned over to kiss his cheek, a gesture that still made his heart race. "How about you? Any fallout from the business meeting yesterday?" Marcus grimaced. The meeting with potential new investors had been brutal. Word had gotten out about his broken engagement, and some people saw it as a sign of instability. Richard Lane had made sure of that, spreading rumors about Marcus's poor judgment and unreliable character. "Nothing I can't handle," he said, not wanting to worry her. Hannah gave him a look that said she knew he was downplaying things, but she didn't push. That was one of the things he loved about her. She trusted him to handle his own problems while making it clear she was there if he needed support. "Katie's working late tonight," Hannah said as they drove toward her apartment. "Want to try cooking dinner together? I picked up ingredients for pasta. You trust me in your kitchen? I trust you not to burn the apartment down. Beyond that, we'll see." Marcus laughed, feeling the stress of the day melt away. This was what he'd been missing his whole life, someone who made ordinary moments feel like gifts. At Hannah's apartment, they fell into an easy rhythm. Marcus chopped vegetables while Hannah made sauce from scratch, their conversation flowing between work stories and childhood memories. When Marcus accidentally added too much garlic, Hannah just laughed and adjusted the recipe. "Victoria would have had a heart attack," Marcus said, watching Hannah taste the sauce and add more herbs. "Well, I'm not Victoria," Hannah said simply. "Thank God for that." They ate by candlelight at Hannah's small kitchen table, talking about books they'd read and places they wanted to travel. Hannah told him about her dream of maybe opening a small bed and breakfast someday, somewhere quiet where she could take care of people who actually appreciated it. "You'd be amazing at that," Marcus said, meaning every word. "You think? It's probably just a silly dream." "It's not silly. It's perfect for you." Marcus reached across the table to take her hand. "You have this gift for making people feel cared for, safe. That's exactly what a good B&B needs." Hannah's cheeks flushed pink. "You make it sound possible." "It is possible. We could make it possible." The words slipped out before Marcus could stop them. They'd been careful not to make big future plans, taking things one day at a time like Hannah had requested. But sitting in her warm kitchen, watching her face light up when she talked about her dreams, Marcus couldn't help imagining a life where he helped make those dreams come true. "Marcus," Hannah said softly, "we said we'd go slow." "I know. I'm sorry. When I'm with you, the future doesn't seem scary anymore. It seems full of possibilities." Hannah squeezed his hand. "I feel the same way. That's what scares me." "Why does it scare you?" "Because the last time I felt this way, it turned out to be built on lies." Hannah's voice grew quiet. "Because when something feels too good to be true, it usually is." Marcus brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her palm. "This is true, Hannah. What we have is real." "I'm starting to believe that," she whispered, "which terrifies me." Marcus stood and pulled her into his arms, holding her close in the flickering candlelight. She fit against him perfectly, her head tucked under his chin, her hands fisted in his shirt like she was afraid he might disappear. "I'm not going anywhere," he murmured into her hair. "I promise you I'm not going anywhere." Hannah pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright with emotion. "Don't make promises you might not be able to keep." "I'm not." Marcus cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "Hannah, I love you." The words hung in the air between them, simple and true and terrifying. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too." When Marcus kissed her, it felt like coming home and setting off on an adventure at the same time. It felt like everything he'd been searching for without knowing what he was looking for. Later, as they cleaned up the dishes together, Marcus felt a contentment he'd never experienced before. This was what happiness looked like, not grand gestures or expensive things, but simple moments shared with someone who truly knew and loved him. "I should probably head home soon," he said reluctantly, drying the last plate. "Probably," Hannah agreed, but she made no move to step away from where she was leaning against the counter beside him. "Or," Marcus said, setting down the dish towel and turning to face her, "I could stay a little longer." Hannah's smile was soft and sure. "I'd like that very much." The next morning brought the first real test of their new relationship. Marcus was having coffee with his mother when Andre burst through the back door, his face grim. "We need to talk," Andre said without preamble. "All of us." "What's wrong?" Lorraine asked, immediately sensing trouble. Andre glanced at Marcus. "Victoria's been busy spreading rumors about you and Hannah, and some of them are getting nasty." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What kind of rumors?" "The kind that make you sound like a man who can't keep his hands off the help." Andre's voice was tight with anger. "She's telling people that your relationship with Hannah started before you broke up with her, that Hannah was available to you while she was working here." "That's a lie," Lorraine said sharply. "Hannah would never—" "We know that," Andre interrupted. "But Victoria's friends don't know Hannah, and they're eating this up like candy." Marcus felt rage building in his chest. "What exactly is she saying?" Andre pulled out his phone and showed them a screenshot from social media. It was a post from one of Victoria's friends, written in that fake concerned tone people used when they wanted to spread gossip while pretending to be innocent. "So sorry to hear about Marcus Reed and Victoria Lane. Apparently he's moved on very quickly with his mother's housekeeper. I suppose some men prefer women who know their place, if you know what I mean." Wink emoji. Marcus stared at the screen, feeling sick. The implications were clear and ugly, that Hannah was somehow beneath him, available for his entertainment, a convenient plaything. "There are more," Andre said quietly, "and they're getting worse." "Show me," Marcus demanded. "Marcus, show me." Andre reluctantly scrolled through more posts. Each one was more poisonous than the last, painting Marcus as a man who'd thrown away a quality woman for a quick affair with the help. Some questioned Hannah's motives, suggesting she'd seduced Marcus for his money. Others made crude jokes about keeping it in the kitchen. Marcus felt like he was going to be sick. "How many people have seen this?" "It's spreading," Andre admitted. "Victoria's got a lot of friends, and they've got friends. It's the kind of gossip that travels fast." "What about Hannah?" Lorraine asked. "Does she know?" "I don't think so yet, but someone's going to tell her, or she's going to see it herself." Marcus was already reaching for his keys. "I need to warn her." "Marcus, wait," his mother said. "What are you going to do about this?" "I'm going to protect Hannah, and I'm going to make Victoria stop." "How?" "You can't control what people say on social media." Marcus paused, his hand on the door handle. His mother was right. He couldn't force people to delete posts or stop talking, but he could make it clear that anyone who attacked Hannah was attacking him. "I'm going to make a statement," he said, "public and clear, about how I feel about Hannah and what she means to me." "That might make it worse," Andre warned. "Give them more to talk about." "Let them talk," Marcus said fiercely. "I'm tired of caring what these people think." He drove to the motel where Hannah was working, his anger growing with every mile. How dare Victoria do this? How dare she drag Hannah into their mess, make her the target of cruel gossip and speculation? Marcus found Hannah in the laundry room, folding towels with her usual careful efficiency. She looked up when he entered, her face lighting up with a smile that made his heart clench. "This is a nice surprise," she said, setting down the towel she'd been folding. "What brings you to my glamorous workplace?" Marcus could see in her expression that she hadn't heard about the social media posts yet. Her happiness was genuine, unclouded by the ugliness that was spreading through Victoria's social circle. "Hannah," he said gently, "we need to talk." Something in his tone must have warned her, because her smile faded. "What's wrong?" Marcus told her everything, showing her the posts on Andre's phone, watching her face grow pale as she read the cruel comments and nasty implications. "Oh," she said quietly when she'd seen enough. "Oh, I see. Hannah, you know none of this is true, right? You know that what we have started after I ended things with Victoria?" "Of course I know that," Hannah said, but her voice was distant. "The question is whether anyone else will believe it." "I don't care what anyone else believes." Hannah looked at him with sad eyes. "You should care, Marcus. These are your people, your social circle, and they're making it very clear what they think of women like me." "They're not my people," Marcus said firmly. "Anyone who would spread lies about you isn't someone I want in my life." Hannah sat down heavily on a stack of clean linens. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. The reason I wanted to go slow, to keep things quiet. We can handle this together. Can we?" Hannah's voice was sharp now. "Marcus, look at what they're saying about me. I'm a gold digger, a homewrecker, a woman who knows her place. This is what happens when someone like me gets involved with someone like you." "Stop saying that. Stop acting like there's some fundamental difference between us that matters." "But there is." Hannah stood up, pacing to the small window. "You live in a world where people judge you by who you marry, where your reputation affects your business, where the wrong relationship can cost you everything. And you live in a world where you work 2 jobs just to pay rent, where people treat you like you're invisible, where you have to be grateful for basic human decency." Marcus shot back. "Neither of our worlds is perfect." Hannah turned to face him, tears in her eyes. "But yours is the one with power, and when people with power decide someone doesn't belong, they can make life very difficult for that person." Marcus felt his heart breaking as he watched Hannah retreat behind the walls she'd built to protect herself. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we moved too fast. Maybe we should take a step back, let things cool down." "You want to break up?" The words came out strangled. "I want to protect us both from something that could get much worse." Marcus moved to her, taking her hands in his. "Hannah, please, don't let them win. Don't let Victoria's poisonous friends convince you that what we have isn't worth fighting for." "It's not about what it's worth," Hannah said, tears streaming down her face now. "It's about what it costs. And I'm starting to think the cost might be too high." "For who? For me?" "For both of us. Marcus, you could lose clients, business relationships, social connections. All for what? For me." "Yes, for you," Marcus said fiercely. "Because you're worth more to me than all of that combined." Hannah pulled her hands free and wiped her eyes. "You say that now. But what happens when the novelty wears off and you realize what you gave up?" "I won't." "You don't know that." Hannah's voice cracked. "David said the same things. He made me feel like I was worth everything to him, until I wasn't." Marcus felt helpless in the face of her pain and fear. "I'm not David, Hannah. How many times do I have to prove that to you?" "I know you're not David," Hannah said quietly, "but you're also not someone who's used to having his personal life dissected in public. You're not used to being the subject of ugly gossip and social ostracism." "So? I can handle it." "Can you? For months? Years? What about when it affects your business, when you lose clients because they disapprove of your choice in women?" Marcus wanted to tell her none of that mattered, that he could handle anything as long as they were together. But the truth was, he didn't know what the long-term consequences might be. He'd built his business on relationships, reputation, trust. If Victoria's campaign succeeded in painting him as unstable or inappropriate, Hannah must have seen the doubt in his face, because she nodded sadly. "See, you're already wondering if I'm worth it." "That's not," Marcus started, then stopped. Because wasn't that exactly what he'd been thinking? Not whether Hannah was worth it, she absolutely was, but whether he was strong enough to weather whatever storm Victoria might create. "I think," Hannah said carefully, "we should take some time apart, let the gossip die down, figure out if this is really what we both want." "I know what I want," Marcus said desperately. "I want you. You want the idea of me, the woman who makes you feel different, special, real." Hannah's smile was heartbreaking. "But I don't know if you want the reality of what loving me means, and I don't know if I'm brave enough to find out." Marcus felt like the ground was disappearing beneath his feet. "Hannah, please, don't do this. I'm not doing anything except protecting both of us from making a mistake we'll both regret." She walked past him toward the door, and Marcus felt panic rise in his chest. How long? How long do you want to take time apart? Hannah paused without turning around. I don't know. Until we both figure out what we really want. I already know what I want. Then maybe I'm the one who needs time to figure it out. She left him standing in the laundry room, surrounded by the scent of detergent and the echo of his own breathing. Marcus stared at the door she'd walked through, feeling like his heart had been ripped out of his chest. Outside, he could hear the sounds of normal life, cars passing, people talking, the world going on as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The woman he loved had just walked away, convinced that loving him would destroy them both. And the worst part was, Marcus wasn't sure she was wrong. 2 weeks passed like a slow-motion nightmare. Marcus threw himself into work, trying to rebuild the business relationships that Victoria's gossip campaign had damaged. Some clients stood by him, but others began to distance themselves, citing concerns about his judgment and stability. He tried calling Hannah several times, but she didn't answer. Katie finally agreed to meet him at Romano's diner, though she made it clear she wasn't happy about it. She's protecting herself, Katie said bluntly, refilling his coffee cup with more force than necessary. And honestly, I think she's smart to do it. Thanks for the support, Marcus said bitterly. You want support? Then prove you deserve it. Katie sat across from him in the booth, her young face fierce with protective love for her sister. Do you have any idea what the last 2 weeks have been like for Hannah? Marcus felt his stomach drop. What do you mean? I mean, someone posted her picture online with her full name and where she works. I mean, she's been getting nasty messages from strangers telling her to know her place. I mean, someone called the motel and complained about her, trying to get her fired. The blood drained from Marcus's face. What? Why didn't she tell me? Because she knew you'd blame yourself and try to fix everything. Because she's tired of being someone's problem to solve. Katie's voice was sharp with anger. Because she's scared that if she leans on you too much, she'll end up completely dependent on someone who might not stick around. Marcus felt sick. While he'd been feeling sorry for himself, Hannah had been dealing with harassment and threats to Theodore, her livelihood. Is she okay? Is she safe? She's surviving. She picked up extra shifts at another motel across town where people don't know who she is yet. Katie's expression softened slightly. She misses you, Marcus, but she's also terrified of what loving you might cost her. I would never let anyone hurt her. But you can't control what people do, can you? You can't make Victoria stop spreading lies, or make her friends stop sharing ugly posts, or make strangers stop sending Hannah hateful messages. Marcus felt the weight of his own powerlessness crushing down on him. Katie was right. For all his money and success, he couldn't protect Hannah from the ugliness his world could produce. What do I do? He asked quietly. Katie studied his face for a long moment. You figure out if you love her enough to fight for her, even when the fighting gets dirty and exhausting and expensive. Of course I love her enough. Do you? Katie interrupted. Because loving Hannah means accepting that some people will never think she's good enough for you. It means dealing with whispers and judgment and social rejection. It means choosing her over your reputation, your business connections, your mother's approval. My mother likes Hannah. Your mother likes Hannah as your employee, as your girlfriend, your wife, the mother of your children? Katie shook her head. That's different, and you know it. Marcus thought about his recent conversations with Lorraine, how she'd grown increasingly worried about the social fallout from his relationship with Hannah, how she'd started suggesting that maybe he should lay low for a while, let things cool down. So what are you saying? That I should give up? I'm saying you should decide what you're actually willing to sacrifice for love, and then you should be honest with Hannah about what that is. Katie stood up, grabbing her coffee pot. Because right now, she thinks you're going to wake up one day and realize she's not worth the trouble. And until you can prove otherwise, she's protecting herself the only way she knows how. As Marcus drove home from the diner, Katie's words echoed in his head. What was he willing to sacrifice? His social standing, his business relationships, his mother's approval? The answer, he realized, was all of it. He'd give up everything for Hannah. But he also realized that wasn't the real question. The real question was whether he was strong enough to build something new with Hannah, something that could survive in a world that didn't want them together. And for the first time since this all started, Marcus wasn't sure of the answer. The answer came 3 days later, in the most unexpected way possible. Marcus was in his office when his assistant buzzed him. "There's a woman here to see you. Says her name is Hannah Cole, but she doesn't have an appointment." Marcus's heart stopped. "Send her in, right away." Hannah appeared in his doorway looking pale but determined, wearing her good dress and carrying a manila envelope. "Hello, Marcus." "Hannah." He stood up so quickly he knocked over his coffee mug. "God, it's good to see you. Are you okay? Katie told me about the messages, the harassment." "I'm fine," Hannah said, though she didn't look fine. She looked tired, stressed, like she'd been carrying the weight of the world. "Can we talk?" "Of course. Sit down, please." Marcus came around his desk, wanting to hug her but not sure if she'd welcome the contact. Hannah remained standing, clutching the envelope like a shield. "I came to give you this." She held out the envelope, and Marcus took it with confusion. Inside were several printed emails and screenshots. "What is this?" "Proof," Hannah said simply. Marcus began reading, his confusion growing. The emails were between Victoria and several of her friends, planning their social media campaign against Hannah, but they weren't just spreading rumors. They were coordinating lies, making up stories, fabricating evidence. "Where did you get these?" Marcus asked, looking up at Hannah's grim face. "Someone sent them to me. Someone who apparently got tired of watching Victoria destroy innocent people for sport." Marcus kept reading, his anger building with each message. Victoria's friends had created fake social media accounts to send Hannah threatening messages. They'd called the motel pretending to be outraged customers. They'd even discussed hiring someone to follow Hannah, looking for compromising photos they could leak. "This is insane," Marcus said. "This isn't gossip, it's organized harassment." "I know." Hannah's voice was steady, but Marcus could see her hands shaking. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Marcus looked at her, standing in his office like a warrior preparing for battle, and felt something shift inside his chest. This woman, his woman, had been under attack for weeks, and instead of breaking down or running away, she was here ready to fight back. "I'm going to destroy her," he said quietly. "Marcus." "No, Hannah, I'm done playing nice, done worrying about social consequences in business relationships." Marcus stood up, the papers in his hand, feeling clearer than he had in weeks. "Victoria wants to play dirty? Fine. She just handed us everything we need to bury her." "This isn't about revenge," Hannah said. "It's about stopping her from doing this to other people." Marcus looked at the woman he loved, seeing the strength and integrity that had drawn him to her from the beginning. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here to do the right thing, even though it was dangerous. "You're right," he said. "This is about justice, about protecting other people from Victoria's games." "So you'll help me? Even though it means more scandal, more gossip?" Marcus set down the papers and moved to Hannah, taking her hands in his. They were cold, trembling slightly, but her grip was firm. "Hannah, I don't care about the gossip. I don't care about my reputation or my social standing or what anyone thinks about us." His voice grew stronger with each word. "I care about you. I love you, and I'm tired of being afraid to say that publicly." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "Even if it costs you clients, friends, business relationships?" "Then I'll find new clients and make new friends and build new business relationships with people who judge me by who I am, not who I'm dating." "And your mother?" "She won't approve of you making this public." Marcus thought about Lorraine, about her fears and concerns, about the pressure she'd been putting on him to lay low. "My mother will have to decide what's more important, her social standing or her son's happiness." Hannah searched his face, looking for doubt, for uncertainty. "You really mean it?" "I really mean it." Marcus brought her hands to his lips, kissing each knuckle gently. "Hannah, these last 2 weeks without you have been hell. I don't want to spend another day pretending I don't love you or that you're not the most important thing in my life." The tears spilled over then, streaming down Hannah's cheeks. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too, every second." Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. "I'm sorry I let you face all this alone. I'm sorry I ever made you doubt how much you mean to me. I'm sorry I ran away instead of fighting with you," Hannah whispered into his shirt. I was scared. We were both scared, but we don't have to be scared anymore." They held each other in the middle of his office, surrounded by evidence of Victoria's cruelty, and Marcus felt something settle into place. This was it. This was them choosing each other, choosing to fight together instead of apart. "So," Hannah said, pulling back to look at him, "how do we take down the Queen of Mean?" Marcus grinned, feeling more like himself than he had in weeks. "Together. We do it together." "And after? When the dust settles and Victoria's been exposed?" "After we build the life we want. Starting with me taking you to dinner at the fanciest restaurant in town and making it very clear to anyone watching that you're the woman I love." Hannah's smile was like the sun coming out after a storm. "That sounds perfect." "Almost perfect," Marcus corrected, pulling her close again. "It'll be perfect when you say you'll give us another chance." "I love you, Marcus Reed," Hannah said, her voice strong and sure. "And I'm ready to stop being afraid of that." When Marcus kissed her, it felt like coming home and setting off on an adventure at the same time. It felt like everything he'd been searching for, everything he was willing to fight for. Outside his office, the world continued spinning, full of challenges and obstacles, and people who would try to tear them down. But inside his office, holding the woman he loved, Marcus felt invincible. They had work to do. Marcus and Hannah spent the weekend planning their strategy. The evidence Hannah had received was damaging enough to destroy Victoria's reputation and possibly get her in legal trouble for harassment. But Marcus wanted to be smart about how they used it. "We could just release everything online," Hannah suggested as they sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by printed emails and screenshots. "Let people see what she's really like." "We could," Marcus agreed. "But that makes us just like her, fighting dirty, spreading gossip, trying to destroy someone publicly." Hannah looked up from the papers she'd been organizing. "So what do you suggest?" "We go to Victoria first, give her a chance to stop the harassment and make a public apology. If she refuses," Marcus shrugged, "then we let the evidence speak for itself." "You think she'll actually apologize?" "Probably not, but at least we'll know we tried to handle it the right way." Hannah reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "This is why I love you, you know. Even when someone's been cruel to both of us, you still want to give them a chance to do better." Marcus brought her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her palm. "I learned that from you. The way you handle people, even when they're difficult. You always assume they might be better than they've shown." "Except when it comes to myself," Hannah said with a rueful laugh. "I'm much harder on myself than I am on other people. Which is why you need me around, to remind you how amazing you are." They called Victoria that evening, asking to meet the next day. She agreed, probably thinking they were calling to surrender or beg her to stop. Marcus almost felt sorry for her. Almost. They met at a quiet coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where Victoria couldn't cause a scene without embarrassing herself. She arrived 15 minutes late, dressed like she was going to a board meeting, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Well, well," Victoria said, sliding into the booth across from them. The happy couple. "I have to say, you two have been quite the entertainment lately." "Victoria," Marcus said calmly, "we need to talk about your social media campaign." "My what?" Victoria's expression was perfectly innocent. "I have no idea what you mean." Hannah slid a folder across the table. "These say otherwise." Victoria opened the folder, her face going pale as she saw the printed emails and screenshots. Marcus watched her read through the evidence of her own cruelty, saw the exact moment she realized how much trouble she was in. "Where did you get these?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Does it matter?" Marcus leaned forward. "What matters is that we have proof of organized harassment, threats, defamation, and conspiracy to destroy Hannah's livelihood. That's not just mean girls being catty, Victoria. That's criminal behavior." Victoria's hands shook slightly as she closed the folder. "What do you want?" "We want it to stop," Hannah said firmly. "All of it. The posts, the messages, the attempts to get me fired, everything." "And we want a public apology," Marcus added. "Something that makes it clear Hannah did nothing wrong, that your previous posts were based on lies and jealousy." Victoria laughed, but it came out brittle and desperate. "You're joking. You actually think I'm going to publicly humiliate myself for your little love story?" We think you're going to do what's right, Marcus said, for once in your life. And if I refuse, Marcus gestured to the folder, then we release everything, every email, every screenshot, every piece of evidence showing how you organized a harassment campaign against an innocent woman. Your friends, your family, your social circle, they'll all see exactly what kind of person you really are. Victoria stared at them both, her perfect facade finally cracking. You don't understand what you're asking. My reputation, my social standing, your reputation is built on lies anyway, Hannah said quietly. Maybe it's time people saw the truth. The truth? Victoria's voice rose, drawing glances from other customers. The truth is that you're nobody, a housekeeper who got lucky enough to catch the attention of a successful man, and now you think you deserve to be treated like you matter. Marcus felt his temper flare, but Hannah squeezed his hand under the table, keeping him calm. You're right, Hannah said. I am a housekeeper. I clean up other people's messes, organize their lives, take care of them when they need help, and I'm proud of that work. Proud? Victoria looked genuinely confused. Yes, proud, because I know that what I do makes people's lives better. I help them, I care for them, I treat them with respect even when they don't treat me the same way. Hannah's voice grew stronger. Can you say the same about your life, Victoria? Can you honestly say that you make the world better just by being in it? Victoria opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. For the first time since Marcus had known her, she seemed to have no words. You have 24 hours, Marcus said, standing up. Stop the harassment and issue a public apology, or we release everything. They left Victoria sitting alone in the coffee shop, staring at the folder of evidence like it was a bomb about to explode. 26 hours later, Victoria posted a carefully worded apology on all her social media accounts. It wasn't everything Marcus and Hannah had hoped for, but it was enough. She admitted to misunderstanding the situation and reacting poorly to disappointment. She asked people to stop sending negative messages to Hannah and acknowledged that some things that were said went too far. It wasn't a full confession, but it was public proof that Victoria had been wrong. The harassment stopped almost immediately. Think it's over? Hannah asked, reading the apology on Marcus's phone as they sat on her couch. The worst of it, yeah. There might still be some gossip, some people who choose to believe Victoria's version instead of the truth. But the organized campaign is done. Hannah leaned against his shoulder, and Marcus felt the tension he'd been carrying for weeks finally start to ease. So what now? She asked. Now we live our lives, openly, honestly together. Marcus turned to look at her. No more hiding, no more apologizing for who we are or who we love. And your business? Your mother? The social consequences? Marcus had been thinking about this for days. My business will survive. The clients who matter, the ones who judge me by my work instead of my personal life, they'll stick around. As for my mother, he sighed, she'll come around. She loves me, and eventually she'll realize that my happiness matters more than what her bridge club thinks. And the social consequences? I'm hoping we find a better social circle, people who care more about character than bank accounts. Hannah was quiet for a moment. It won't be easy, Marcus. Some people will never accept us. Then those aren't our people. Marcus pulled her closer. Hannah, I'm done trying to fit into a world that doesn't want me to be happy. I'd rather build a new world with you. Even if it's smaller, simpler? Especially if it's smaller and simpler. I've had big and complicated, remember? It was miserable. Hannah laughed, the sound Marcus had missed more than breathing. Well, when you put it like that, is that a yes? Are you willing to build something new with me? Instead of answering with words, Hannah kissed him. It was soft and sure and full of promise, tasting like coffee and hope and home. When they broke apart, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I love you, Hannah Cole. I love you too, Marcus Reed, and I'm ready to stop being scared of that. 2 months later, Marcus picked Hannah up from her new job at a small boutique hotel downtown. She'd finally quit the motel work, taking a position that paid better and treated her with the respect she deserved. The hotel manager, a woman named Carol, who'd heard about Hannah's situation through the grapevine, had specifically sought her out. Good people are hard to find, Carol had told Marcus when he'd stopped by to thank her. And that girl of yours is good people. Marcus couldn't argue with that assessment. How was your day? he asked as Hannah climbed into the car, looking tired but content. Busy. Good busy, though. We had a wedding party check-in, and I helped them coordinate all their event details. Hannah smiled. It reminded me of planning your engagement party, except this time, everyone was actually excited about the wedding. Marcus laughed. That does make a difference. They were driving to his mother's house for dinner, a weekly tradition they had started after Lorraine had finally accepted that Hannah wasn't going anywhere. It had taken time, and more than a few, difficult conversations, but his mother had eventually realized that her son's happiness was more important than social appearances. The breakthrough had come when Lorraine had gotten food poisoning and Hannah had spent 3 days taking care of her, bringing soup and medicine and sitting by her bed, reading aloud when she couldn't sleep. It was hard to maintain class prejudices against someone who held your hair while you threw up. She's a treasure, Lorraine had told Marcus afterward. I was wrong about her, about what matters. Now, as they pulled into his mother's driveway, Marcus could see Andre's truck already parked there, and next to it, a car he didn't recognize. Expecting other guests? Hannah asked. Not that I know of. They found everyone in the backyard, Lorraine, Andre, and a young woman Marcus had never seen before. She was pretty in a quiet way, with dark hair and an easy smile, deep in conversation with Andre about something that was making him laugh. There you are, Lorraine called when she spotted them. Come meet Andre's friend Sarah. She's the one who sent Hannah those emails. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. The mysterious whistleblower who'd exposed Victoria's harassment campaign was Andre's friend. Sarah Miller, the woman said, standing to shake their hands. I'm glad to finally meet you both properly. You're the one who sent the evidence, Hannah said. Why? I mean, thank you, but why did you help us? Sarah's expression grew serious. Because Victoria and her friends tried to do the same thing to my sister last year. My sister was dating someone they thought was beneath him, and they made her life hell until she broke up with him. I couldn't prove it then, but when I saw them doing it again, she shrugged. I made sure to document everything this time. Is your sister okay now? Hannah asked gently. She is. She ended up marrying that guy last month, actually. They moved to Portland to get away from all the drama. Sarah's smile was warm. Sometimes the best thing you can do is build a life away from people who don't deserve to be in it. Marcus felt Hannah's hand squeeze his. They'd talked about leaving town, starting fresh somewhere new. But in the end, they decided to stay and fight for their place in the community they'd both grown up in. I have news, Andre announced, grinning like a kid with a secret. What kind of news? Marcus asked suspiciously. The good kind. I asked Sarah to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. The backyard erupted in congratulations and laughter. Lorraine immediately started planning a celebratory dinner. Hannah hugged Sarah like they were old friends, and Marcus felt a deep satisfaction watching his cousin's happiness. As the evening wore on, Marcus found himself sitting on the porch steps with Hannah, watching Andre and Sarah help Lorraine set up citronella candles to keep the bugs away. The scene was domestic and peaceful, full of the kind of love that was built on friendship and respect instead of obligation and appearance. This is nice, Hannah said, leaning against his shoulder. It is. Different from what I thought my life would look like, but better. No regrets? Marcus thought about the question seriously. His business was smaller now, but more personally satisfying. He'd lost some clients, but the ones who'd stayed were the ones he actually enjoyed working with. His social circle was smaller too, but made up of people who cared about him as a person rather than as a symbol of success. No regrets, he said firmly. What about you? Only one, Hannah said quietly. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. What? Hannah was quiet for so long that Marcus started to worry. Then she turned to face him, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I regret not kissing you that first morning when we both reached for your shirt. Marcus threw back his head and laughed, relief and love and pure joy bubbling up from his chest. That's your regret? Well, it would have saved us a lot of trouble if we'd just admitted we were attracted to each other from the beginning. True, but then we might have missed all the good parts too. The getting to know each other, the falling in love slowly, the choosing each other every day even when it was hard. Hannah considered this. You're right. The hard parts made the good parts better. Besides, Marcus said, pulling her closer, We have plenty of time for kissing now. Is that a promise? Instead of answering, Marcus kissed her right there on his mother's porch, with the sound of laughter and conversation drifting from the backyard and the scent of honeysuckle heavy in the evening air. When they broke apart, Hannah was smiling the smile that had stolen his heart from the very beginning. I love you, Marcus Reed. I love you too, Hannah Cole, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. 6 months later, on a crisp Saturday morning in early fall, Marcus stood in the garden of a small bed and breakfast about an hour outside the city. The place was exactly what Hannah had dreamed of, cozy and welcoming, with gardens that looked like something from a fairy tale and a view of rolling hills that went on forever. He was wearing a simple navy suit, nothing like the expensive tuxedo that had been hanging in his closet for his engagement party to Victoria. This suit had been chosen by Hannah, who'd said she wanted to marry the man she fell in love with, not some formal stranger. Andre stood beside him as best man, looking nervous and excited. You ready for this, Kaz? I've been ready since the day I met her, Marcus said, meaning every word. The small group of guests was seated in white chairs arranged on the lawn. Lorraine sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Sarah was there, along with Katie and a few other friends, people who'd supported Marcus and Hannah through all the drama and uncertainty. Notably, absent were most of Marcus's old social circle, including Victoria and her crowd. But Marcus didn't miss them. The people who were there were the ones who mattered. The music started, a simple acoustic guitar played by a friend of Katie's, and Marcus looked toward the bed and breakfast's back door. Hannah appeared, and Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. She wasn't wearing a massive designer gown or a veil that cost more than most people's cars. She was wearing a simple white dress that flowed around her like water, her hair loose and crowned with small white flowers. She looked like herself, only more so, radiant and beautiful and absolutely perfect. Katie walked beside her, beaming with pride. They decided against traditional father-daughter symbolism, choosing instead to have Hannah escorted by the person who'd supported her through everything. As Hannah walked toward him across the grass, Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. This woman, his woman, had chosen to trust him with her heart despite every reason she had to be cautious. She'd fought for their love when it would have been easier to walk away. She'd believed in them even when he doubted himself. You clean up pretty good, Hannah said softly when she reached him, her eyes sparkling with humor and love. Not half as good as you, Marcus replied, taking her hands in his. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt, led by a justice of the peace who talked about love as a choice made new every day, about the courage required to build a life with another person, about the beauty of finding someone who sees you clearly and loves you anyway. When it came time for vows, Marcus had planned to read from note cards. Instead, he found himself speaking from his heart. Hannah, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. 6 months ago, I thought I knew what my life was supposed to look like. I thought happiness was about checking boxes, meeting expectations, building something that looked successful from the outside. Hannah's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Then I met you, and you showed me what happiness actually looks like. It looks like someone who sees me, really sees me, and loves me anyway. It looks like quiet Sunday mornings and terrible cooking experiments and conversations that last until 3 in the morning. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. It looks like choosing each other every day, even when the world tries to convince us we don't belong together. He took a shaky breath. I promise to love you not in spite of who you are, but because of who you are. I promise to choose you every day, in big ways and small ones. I promise to build a life with you that's measured not by what other people think, but by how happy we make each other. Hannah was crying openly now, but her smile was radiant. Marcus, she said, her voice clear and strong, you taught me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. You taught me that being vulnerable doesn't make me weak. It makes me brave. You taught me that I deserve to be loved not for what I can do for someone, but for who I am. She squeezed his hands. I promise to trust you with my heart, even when fear tells me to protect myself. I promise to fight for us, even when fighting is scary. I promise to love you not just for who you are today, but for who you're becoming, who we're becoming together. when the justice of the peace pronounced them husband and wife. Marcus kissed Hannah like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. Around them, their small group of family and friends cheered and applauded, but Marcus barely heard them. All he could hear was Hannah whispering, "I love you," against his lips, and the sound of his own heart finally coming home. The reception was held in the bed and breakfast's dining room, with food prepared by the owner's chef and music provided by the same guitarist who'd played the ceremony. It was exactly what Hannah had wanted, intimate and warm, focused on celebration rather than spectacle. Marcus couldn't stop staring at his wife. His wife. The words felt surreal and perfect at the same time. "Having second thoughts?" Hannah teased, catching him watching her as she talked with Sarah and Katie. "Only about waiting so long to do this," Marcus said, pulling her close for another dance. Well, we had to give the gossips time to find someone else to talk about." "Are you sure we want to give them more material? Because I'm thinking of a very public honeymoon in Europe." Hannah laughed, the sound Marcus would never get tired of hearing. "Scandalous. What will people say?" "Let them say whatever they want. I'm done caring about what anyone thinks except you." As if summoned by their conversation about gossip, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. He almost ignored it, but something made him check. It was from Victoria. "Congratulations. You were right. She makes you happy in a way I never could have. I hope you'll both be very happy." Marcus showed the message to Hannah, who read it with raised eyebrows. "Huh," she said. "That's unexpectedly gracious." Maybe she finally figured out what she actually wants instead of what she thinks she should want. "Or maybe she's just glad to be rid of us," Hannah said with a grin. "Either way, I wish her well." From a safe distance. They danced until the stars came out, surrounded by people who loved them and supported their choice to choose love over convention. Marcus thought about all the ways his life had changed in the past year, how much smaller and simpler and infinitely more meaningful it had become. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Marcus and Hannah found themselves alone on the bed and breakfast's front porch, Hannah's shoes abandoned somewhere inside, Marcus's tie hanging loose around his neck. "So," Hannah said, curled up against his side on the porch swing, "we're married." "We are indeed. How does it feel?" "Like coming home and going on an adventure at the same time." Marcus smiled, remembering saying almost the same thing months ago. "I know exactly what you mean." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars and listening to the night sounds of the countryside. In the distance, Marcus could see the lights of the city where they'd met, where they'd fought for their love, where they'd build their future together. "Thank you," Hannah said suddenly. "For what?" "For being brave enough to choose love, for fighting for us, for seeing me." Marcus turned to look at his wife, in the starlight. "Thank you for being worth fighting for teaching me what real love looks like, for choosing me back." "Always," Hannah said, reaching up to cup his face in her hands. "I will always choose you." When she kissed him, Marcus tasted happiness and hope and the promise of all their tomorrows. He thought about the morning he'd first met Hannah in his mother's kitchen, how she'd looked at him like he was just a man instead of a symbol of success or failure. She still looked at him that way. She always would. And that, Marcus thought as he kissed his wife under the stars, was worth everything. 5 years later, Marcus Reed sat on the front porch of the bed and breakfast he and Hannah now owned, watching his wife teach their 2-year-old daughter how to pick flowers in the garden. The business had been a dream come true for Hannah, and Marcus had discovered he loved the personal interaction with guests much more than managing corporate properties. Their life was smaller than what he'd once imagined, but infinitely richer. They had enough money, enough love, enough purpose. They had friends who cared about them as people rather than as symbols of success. They had a daughter who would grow up knowing she was loved unconditionally. "Daddy," little Emma called, running toward the porch with a fistful of dandelions. "Look what Mama and I picked." "They're beautiful, sweetheart," Marcus said, scooping her up and accepting the wilted bouquet with all the solemnity it deserved. Hannah walked over, grass stains on her jeans and dirt under her fingernails, looking more beautiful than she had on their wedding day. "Good day?" she asked, settling beside him on the porch swing. "Perfect day," Marcus said, wrapping his free arm around his wife while their daughter chattered about flowers and butterflies. Sometimes Marcus thought about his old life, wondered what would have happened if he'd married Victoria, if he'd chosen duty over love. The thought always made him grateful for the moment of courage that had changed everything. He'd learned that happiness wasn't about having the biggest house or the most prestigious social circle or the most impressive business. Happiness was about finding someone who saw you clearly and loved you anyway, then building a life together one small, precious moment at a time. And every morning when he woke up next to Hannah in their cozy bedroom above the bed and breakfast, Marcus knew he'd chosen exactly the right life, the simple life, the true life, the life that had room for love to grow.